This is what I think, man.
Okay.
I think evil's real. And I think evil exists in many forms, and it exists in callous disregard for loss of life for profit. That's evil, right? And that's a real thing. Like, you could say evil is the devil. Here's a little lighter here, buddy. You could say evil is Satan, and evil is demons, and evil is, exorcisms and shit. There you go. Look at that, baby. But also, evil is profit over human life, which is real.
Is this the shit you think about when you lay in bed at night?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How the fuck do you sleep?
Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
That's a real problem at night.
Yeah.
At night, I have my most anxiety-filled moments about this stuff. I've talked about it openly.
Wow.
Like, I'll really freak out at night because I legitimately think we are one or two events away from living in the Stone Age again. And I think it could happen in our lifetime, and it could happen to you and I. Like, I'm really convinced that the fabric of society is way more fragile than anyone appreciates.
Yeah.
That most people appreciate, rather.
I mean, I feel it in the air.
Yeah.
Can you just shut it off and not... I mean, there's so many people in this country just walk around and they just don't... All these things that we're talking about right now, they don't think about it. They just live their lives. Don't you think that that's a happier life or no? I just feel so stressed out right now.
You should.
Why?
Because that's the reality that we live in.
It's stressing me out.
That's the reality that we live in. We live in a very dangerous, complicated world.
Yeah.
It's a complicated issue.
It's so complicated.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
When you look at the video of when they do an overhead of what Gaza used to look like and what it looks like now.
It's
insane. It's fucking insane.
But it's like 25,000 now?
At least.
At least.
They don't know how many people are dead. They have no idea.
And just
half the population is women and children.
And the trauma. And the fucking, famine. It's just, I just can't even comprehend it, really.
Yeah, and the Israelis tell you that it's necessary. And that they have to get rid of Hamas. And this is the way to do it. But just,
I mean, I believe that. I believe that. I believe that maybe that should be, but I think the approach could be different.
Yeah.
Right or no?
I don't have any expertise in war.
Neither.
But I'm horrified that they can just shoot missiles into buildings. And they tell people to get out, but then they bomb the areas where they're going to. I mean, the whole thing's nuts, man. It's nuts, and it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. These Free Palestine marches that are happening all over the world, those are all organized too, by the way. When you get on social media and you see the Free Palestine people and the pro-Israel people, what percentage of those people are bots?
Right.
It's not zero. It's not zero. There's a lot of what's getting stirred up, a lot of the hateful things that are being said, a lot of the crazy things that are being said. I guarantee you a lot of that's being instigated by foreign countries. And that's what's scary about social media and the influence it has on people and the way they feel about a particular issue. And that's on top of the horrific nature of the issue itself, both of October 7th, which is undeniably horrific.
Horrific.
And then this. And then on top of that, you have this open anti-Semitism that we never saw before, where it's just open everywhere. It's wild.
It's fucking terrible.
It's so scary, man.
But it's also an issue that will never be resolved.
But it's not just that it'll never be resolved. Like, I never thought it was going to be an issue where the presidents of like major universities were standing in front of Congress and they were justifying people saying death to the Jews, that it wasn't harassment unless it was actionable.
I'm gonna tell you, that's insane. Yeah.
Like what? And then when the Congresswoman was trying to get them to expand on that, do you mean actual genocide, then it's harassment when they commit actual genocide?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you saying?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing we were talking about. It's the cult. They're in that leftist cult, and it's not reasonable. It doesn't make any sense. It's all crazy.
Oh, and when they were like, Osama bin Laden could have been right or whatever.
Where did Osama bin Laden come from? Well, he came from the CIA funding them, the Mujahideen, to fight against the Soviet Union. They're trained. They're trained by Americans.
Yeah.
Look, there's a certain reality to American imperialism. It doesn't do anybody any good to deny it. We have military bases everywhere.
You're right, yeah.
If you were a foreign country, in a nationalistic foreign country, of course you'd hate America. Of course you'd hate what we do. I mean, look at what's going on right now with this Ukraine-Russia thing. Look at how much money's being funneled through that. The fact that all of a sudden no one wanted to admit that Ukraine had always been a very corrupt country. there's a crazy Twitter exchange between Candace Owens and the New York Times, where Candace Owens was talking about how corrupt Ukraine is, and then the New York Times says to her, like, what evidence do you have that Ukraine is corrupt? She goes, oh, you mean there are links from your fucking newspaper? And just from like 2016 and before that, there's all these fucking stories about how corrupt Ukraine is in the New York Times. They didn't even bother looking it up, because when you're in the cult says you support Ukraine. Do you want Ukraine to win, or do you want Russia to win? Like, what the fuck are you even saying?
Yeah.
How much do you know about why this thing was instigated in the first place? How much do you know about NATO? About how much they're moving arms closer to the Soviet Union, about how Ukraine joining NATO was always a red flag. Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know nothing.
Most people that are talking about it don't know either.
I don't know nothing.
That was the red line that you could not cross. Ukraine joining Russia, or joining NATO, rather. The whole thing's fucking terrifying, because we're dealing with nuclear superpowers. When Xi Jinping tells Biden that Taiwan will join China again, like, that means they're going to take Taiwan. What are we going to do if they take Taiwan? Are we going to? And then Biden says we're not going to do anything. Like, okay. First he said we're going to stop them. Now he says we're not going to do anything. Like, oh my God. And he's only saying whatever the fuck they write down for him. The whole thing's nuts. It's like, who's deciding what happens and doesn't happen? It's not that guy, right? So if it's not him, who the fuck is it? Is it the Secretary of State? Is it the press secretary? Who's is it the military industrial complex? Are they completely at the helm? Will they ever let control of that wheel to anybody else now that they have it? But what's going on now is very different, and it's accentuated by social media. And I think it's accentuated by algorithms naturally, because people are inclined to go towards things that upset them. But also, it's done purposely. And I think it's done, if you have enough stuff about, like, whatever the thing is, whether it's Black Lives Matter, or whether it's Ukraine, or whether it's free Palestine from the river to the sea, if you have enough of that online, it moves the needle. And the way I described it the other day, it's like if two ships are going in a certain direction. This is a ship where people logically work through things, and this is a ship that's adjusted by the algorithm, affected by the algorithm. If it just moves that much, over time, this is what we're seeing. So over time, you and I, who used to be on the left, are now like, where's the left? These fucking creeps at the World Economic Forum, they all get together and talk about preparation for disease X. They're calling it virus X or disease X. They're scaring the shit out of me.
But do you think it's? I mean, because I don't know.
Okay.
Can I just ask you something? I don't know. You know me. I don't know much.
Okay.
About nothing, right?
Right.
But do you believe that it was like man-made?
Every expert that I have talked to that examined the virus itself, the cleavage sites, the way it skipped all like animal forms, like you can't find that virus out in the wild, and then all of a sudden it made a leap to person. It apparently has all of the earmarks of being engineered.
Wow.
But this is something that they do. This is not like science fiction. These are the same people that want war. These are the same people that are encouraging censorship. These are the same people that are trying to silence dissent. That's all totalitarian shit. And just because it's done for trans kids or for Black Lives Matter or for any social cause that you think is like undeniably worthy, it's still the same thing at the end of the day. The Patriot Act still controlled people in a way that was never allowed before. And it did it under the guise that we have to stop a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
So even if they don't do evil shit to make these things happen, once these things happen, they take advantage by doing evil shit. And they enact control over the people that they never had before. And that's what they did during COVID.
Can I ask you, why are they so reluctant to not give us a different option there?
Because it's control. Because whenever there's anything that happens in the world, whether it's 9/11, and through 9/11 they passed the Patriot Act, and there was a devastating blow to free speech and control and just your ability to have privacy. The government had full reign to listen to all your phone calls, read all your emails, and they're doing it right now. And the NSA is doing it right now. They can listen to any time you make a phone call to someone. It's all getting recorded.
Yeah, but when we complain like Biden's a little too old, maybe can we find a different option? They're not even open to the idea of it. It's just like, no, he's the guy.
He's not in control right now, right? So if the people who are in control right now, why would they want to swap out a new person?
Deep state.
Well, for real.
Is it deep state?
Listen.
Yeah.
you could put whatever words you want, but if you don't think that these corporations that donate insane amounts of money to political campaigns have an influence on what happens in the world, you're naive. That's a silly way to think of things. Now, if you've got a guy who basically has no mind and he is your figurehead, if you can keep him alive for 4 years, you just run it the way you're running it right now.
Wow.